Attributions. So we've talked a lot about attitudes and behaviors, and like what influences pro-social behavior, for example, and our attitudes, all that kind of stuff. But what about the behavior of others? So an attribution, or when we make an attribution, we're drawing a conclusion about the reason for a particular behavior. To summarize, like as humans, we all judge pretty easily. So again, those attributions are about like drawing a conclusion or like making an attribution about why someone did a particular thing. So you can make a dispositional attribution, which is internal attribution. So that's assigning the cause of a behavior to an internal characteristic, motivation, or belief. So for example, they smiled because they're a nice person, or I got a good mark because I'm really smart. That's an example of an internal attribution. I'm attributing a behavior to an internal characteristic, motivation, or belief. You can also make situational attributions, and that's more of an external attribution. So you're assigning the cause of the behavior to an external kind of force or an external situation or an external factor. So I'm late because the traffic was bad, or you got a bad mark because that test was really hard. So you're attributing the situation, the bad mark, the being late, to an external factor rather than an internal one. Which leads us to the fundamental attribution error. This is really interesting, and I actually think it's really important to be personally aware of for our own personal lives as well as our psychology study. So this is the idea that people tend to underestimate the impact of environmental and situational factors and overestimate the impact of innate factors when it comes to others. So to make that a little bit clearer, when we're kind of judging the cause of behavior when we're judging the cause of a behavior, sorry, I'm not sure this is very clear. Let me just make it a little bit clearer. So when we're attributing the cause of a behavior of someone else, we're more likely to attribute to an internal cause. But when we're judging our own behavior, we're more likely to attribute it to environmental or situational factors. So to give an illustration to make that a little bit more clearer, if I was late to an event, I would say, I was late because it was traffic. I was late because I had something important to do. But if somebody else was late to an event, they didn't have a good reason. They're just a bad person that doesn't value my time. So we can see that we're more likely to make dispositional attributions about other people. I'm more likely to judge them internally as a person and their dispositions and their internal self for a behavior. But when it's me, I'm more likely to make a situational attribution for negative behavior. Oh yeah, I was late because I'm traffic. I'm not a bad person, but they're a bad person because they were late. Very interesting how we tend to do this. Have you ever done this before? I know I'm definitely guilty of it, but that's why I think it's so important to be aware of, because then we can take steps to make sure that we're not doing it as often, so we can be aware of it.